this year, Avengers Endgame has already premiered, but I still haven't made the review about that, but it's in the works. But I can't exactly talk about that until I know what I'll be talking about. So Toy Story 4 comes out later this year, and it's been 24 years since the first Toy Story movie came out. So I thought let's take a little trip down memory lane and just freshen up our collective memory about Toy Story from 1995. So just some quick facts. Like I said, the year was released was 1995, which makes it the first ever feature-length computer animated film, which is pretty cool because before that there had been short films, computer animated short films, and they were just starting to experiment basically with computer animation, but it was a very new medium up until then. And at first, of course, those were hand drawn, but then they, could actually start to scan them into computers and such, which made it easier. But still, it's pretty cool with the hand drawn stuff. And the first feature-length hand drawn animated film was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in 1937? I think it was 1937. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Toy Story. Toy Story was directed by John Lasseter, and the story was created by John Lasseter, Pete Docter with an E at the end, Andrew Stanton, and Joe Ranft. That's pretty cool last name. The screenplay was written by Joss Whedon, who of course you know from the Avengers. Obviously, that was the first thing I ever talked about. Not ever, but on this channel. It was written by the screenplay Joss Whedon, Andrew Stanton, who also wrote the story, Alex Sokolov, who has written a lot of very famous movies, basically. Well, mostly like family-friendly movies and such. And also Joel Cohen, but not the Joel Cohen of the Cohen brothers, not the Ethan and Joel Cohen. This is Joel Cohen with an H between the O and the E, and he hasn't done as much and as many famous things as the Joel Cohen of the Cohen brothers. On IMDb, Toy Story has a rating of 8.3, which is pretty good, and puts it in the list of the top 250 films of all time. And on Rotten Tomatoes, it has an average score of 96%, 92% from fans, and by critics it was given a rating of 100%. So that's pretty darn impressive, if I do say so myself. I haven't made pretty impressive. Now, while doing research and preparation for this, which, believe it or not, I actually do, I couldn't really find enough facts that I could link together to form one interesting narrative or one interesting topic. So what I thought I'd do is just, in light of recent events, I was about to say, but that making sense. In honor of Toy Story 4 premiering later this year. It's been 8 years since the last Toy Story film, and back then, when that was released in 2011, it had been 12 years since Toy Story 2, so they're not released very frequently. But anyway, in light of that, in honor of Toy Story 4 premiering, I thought I'd just talk a little bit about how incredibly good the first Toy Story movie is, because I think that's kind of fallen to the wayside. You know, we don't really appreciate just the masterpiece that it is anymore, which sounds kind of how do I put this, brown nosy, but it really is a fantastic movie in so many ways, and with, you know, now that it has it's soon to have 3 sequels, I think we should just appreciate the first movie in and of its own, just for what it is by itself. So first off, let's talk about just the structure of the movie, of the story in general. Let's talk about that. Now I've sort of studied these things, which sounds like, now that I say it out loud, it sounds like I'm trying to brag and tell you what an authority I am on the science of film, but it's actually kind of embarrassing, because having studied these things, you'd think I'd be I sound a lot more intelligent talking about it, but well, you know, I haven't studied that much. But anyway, the story, we all know the story, you know. Woody is Andrew's favorite toy, and then for his birthday, Andy gets a new toy, a Space Ranger, who becomes his new favorite toy, and Woody becomes jealous of Buzz Lightyear. I mean, how could you not be jealous of someone called Buzz Lightyear? I mean, it's physically impossible, or mentally impossible, I'm not sure. Woody then accidentally pushes Buzz out a window through an entire, like, Rube Goldberg machine, through a series of unfortunate events. He falls out the window, and the other toys, well, they sort of, how do I put this? Well, they start sort of a revolution, and they kick Woody out, and they throw him out the window as well. Woody then has to find Buzz. He does. Then they get taken to Sid's house. Sid just so happens to be Andy's neighbor, and they try to get back, and spoiler alert, they do. Of course, we already knew that, but let's break it down into ridiculously scientific and detailed parts. For some reason, I mean, it's completely unnecessary, but just I want to shine some light on it, because it's so beautifully done. Now, if you're watching this, you obviously, while listening to this, you obviously have some sort of interest in, you know, film and such. So you've probably heard of the 3-act structure, 3-part story structure, where of course there's a first, a second, and a third act, and they each have their own purpose. So the first act is used child does. You know, I spent hundreds of hours playing with my toys. Not recently, but when I was that age. Gosh, did I spend time doing that? Yeah. Oh my. Taking a real trip down memory lane, memory pit, more like. He's playing with his toys, and when he leaves the room, they come alive and start talking to each other, and they have this meeting and everything. And it's the premise basically is made very clear what the concept of the movie is. Basically, living, talking, feeling toys. So that's pretty easy, but they do it in a very nice way. And then what happens in a story? You need something to basically kickstart the plot and to introduce the conflict of the story, and where the main character, what instigates the development of the main character, his character arc, his or her character arc. So the inciting incident in this movie, that's what it's called, in the scientific terms and stuff. Inciting incident, good to know. The inciting incident is basically that Andy gets Buzz for as a birthday present. It's his birthday, and he gets this new cool toy, and that sort of sparks an immense jealousy in Woody, who is at this point the main character, who the story is focused around whom the story is focused. Sorry, goodness, I have to use that proper grammar. We see this jealousy in him, and basically the question becomes, how is he gonna deal with it? Where is it gonna lead? How is it gonna affect him, the people around him, and the plot in general? So it moves around, moves on, moves forward, and we see the rivalry grow between Woody and Buzz, and Buzz is also introduced as a character, and we see his sort of internal conflict, because he thinks he's an actual space ranger, and then we all know, and the other characters, the other toys, all know that he is in fact just a toy. Well, just a toy. I mean, that's not bad either, but he's not what he thinks he is, which coincidentally is the exact plot of Bolt. If you remember that movie, because I barely do. I've seen it once, despite it being like an actual proper Disney film. Is it Pixar? I'm not sure if Pixar did Bolt. But well, if they did Bolt, no, they obviously didn't Bolt, because they still make movies. Sorry, I can't. This is puns. Ugh, the lowest form of humor, but also the best. So where was I? Right. Well, we're introduced to Buzz and his character, and what his development might be throughout the film. Then the conflict begins for real. The plot is kickstarted. The plot is basically introduced at the first plot point. The first plot point is when Buzz gets pushed out the window, and then Woody gets thrown out. Because then, a problem has occurred, and our two main characters have to solve it somehow. They have to adapt to survive and get back home. Then, of course, that's where the first act ends. unanswered. Well, a lot of questions about the mechanics of the toys and being a toy, a living toy. That, well, is still kind of unclear, but plot-wise and character-wise, it's very clear. We understand, well, pretty much everything that's going on in the context of the film. So in the second act, that's where the plot actually plays out, and well, the characters try to solve the problems that they're facing, try to get out of whatever predicament they've been put in. So Woody has to find Buzz, and okay, it's been a while since I saw it again. Of course, I don't. I always fail to actually watch the films right before I do this. But maybe in the future, who knows? I don't have a lot of spare time, believe it or not. So Woody tries to find Buzz, and then he does. They get into the pizza. What was it called? Pizza Planet. The Pizza Planet truck, and they go all the way to some Pizza Planet arcade, and so Woody actually does find Buzz. Buzz finds Does, and then they accidentally get trapped in the claw machine with the little alien characters, who are now, of course, kind of infamous since Logan Paul wore a hat depicting one of those in the Suicide Forest video. So that's too bad, but it's not their fault. I think those little aliens are pretty good for what they're supposed to be. They're not like minions, because I absolutely hate the minions from Despicable Me. Might as well get it out there, and I'll probably talk about that at some point, maybe even in this medium. But anyway, once they're in that claw machine, they sort of, well, before they get inside it, and basically throughout that scene, Woody and Buzz are sort of fighting about, well, Buzz not knowing he's a toy, and Woody being extremely jealous of Buzz being and his new favorite toy. But then, when they're in the claw machine, they get picked up by Sid, and that's where that's the midpoint of the story. So kind of halfway through the second act. The midpoint of a film, of a story, of a narrative, is usually indicated by the main character, transitioning from being, to quote the things I've been taught, transitions from being reactive to being proactive. Proactive. Yeah, I don't know if those were the exact words I said. Anyway, and that's also very clear in the plot, because well, we see that Woody, in the beginning, he's reacting to Andy having a new favorite toy, and he's reacting to how that makes him feel, and how it affects him, and how it affects the other toys, his friends. And then when Buzz gets pushed out, well, it's because of him reacting that Buzz does get pushed out the window, and he gets thrown out, and then he has to react to, he reacts to that situation, and has to, react and keep acting to, well, find a solution. And then when, fighting, and he's basically reacting to everything Buzz says to him. But then when they get taken to Sid's house, he becomes more proactive and starts trying to act and take initiative to in order to get back home and really find a solution. Not just let the circumstances control him, but rather take control of the situation and sort of try to control the circumstances, I suppose. So, well, they get taken to Sid's house, and that's very big for both of their developments, sort of, because, well, up until that point, Woody's life has been sort of, it's been kind of chill, you know. It's been, and his favorite toy, he's sort of been in charge of the other toys, and never really found himself outside of his comfort zone. But in Sid's house, well, everything, it's danger everywhere. You know, the mutant toys that Sid creates, he doesn't know if they're gonna, hurt him. So he has to sort of navigate through that, and he grows as a person, basically as a character, by having to find those solutions and everything. And also Buzz sees that commercial for the toy that he is, and well, he realizes that he is in fact a toy, and not an actual space ranger, which flips his whole reality upside down, and well, he has to deal with that, which is, a very strong part of very strong, what do you call it? Sort of a strong thing. I can't find a proper word. But for in any character development, just having your whole world view flipped upside down, realizing you're something completely different from what you thought you were. So they tried to find a way to escape from Sid's house and get back to Annie's house. They try all these different things. They try to signal the other toys from the toys in Andy's house, and then Buzz loses his arm, and Woody tries to fake him actually like being there by just holding his arm, and that just makes the situation even worse. So Woody has to deal with both, trying to survive in Sid's house, the other toys not believing him and really hating him, and then Buzz not being very cooperative. And then, when we're at that point in the story where it's kind of unclear where it's supposed to go, where the story is supposed to go, what the characters are supposed to do, they find themselves in this really, like, the worst situation imaginable, when the mutant toys that Sid has, deconstructed and reconstructed, when they grab Buzz, and they don't, neither Woody nor Buzz have any idea what they're actually gonna do with Buzz. If you haven't seen the movie now, obviously we know how the story pans out, but narrative-wise, it's very unclear what's gonna happen. But then it turns out that the mutant toys aren't actually evil at all. They just, pretty much assume they're evil because they look weird. That's how history has been, basically throughout. So that's kind of an interesting aspect of the film. say it's the second plot point, which can also be referred to as the peripeteia, which is a weird word, but it basically means that it's a twist. It's some sort of twist. They flip the whole plot at that point on its head, and it realizes that it turns out that well, everything is very different than actually it's. So that's very clear what they're going for there, and it well, it happens such a smooth and discreet way. So yeah, again, perfect storytelling, still consistent, and then that takes us to the third act. Now, in the third act of a movie, the plot is supposed to wrap up. The problems are supposed to be solved, or at least we're supposed to think they're being solved. It depends on. It's supposed to come to a climax. Basically, is what I'm getting at. I started thinking about Avengers: Infinity War, where obviously the problems aren't solved. They just get a lot worse. But still, the third act is when the story wraps up. Basically, it wraps up what it's been building to that far. So Sid's toys turn out to be very friendly, and they help Woody and Buzz escape, and they sort of defeat Sid by well, probably traumatizing him for the rest of his life, but still they they get out of his clutches, sort of. So that's that plot thread wrapped up, and then they try to get to the moving truck where all of Andy's other toys are, and where Andy is, because well, they're moving to their new house, and Woody and Buzz don't want to get left behind. So they're racing after the truck. I don't exactly remember in what order everything happens there, but they get the little the toy, the car, the remote controlled car. I think RC is what it's actually named. They get on that, and they start racing after the truck, and Sid's dog gets loose and starts running after them, and that's sort of the climax of the story, because they're so close to getting what they want. They're so close to going home, but there's this huge threat that can just, decimate their hopes and dreams very easily. So high risk, high reward. It could go either way. Either everything works out or nothing does. Again, I don't exactly remember how it works out, but what is it? Buzz has this rocket on his back because Sid was going to blow him up, and Woody has a match from that he got from Sid. The match just blows out immediately. The fire extinguishes, but then Woody figures out, well, he realizes that they can use the sun reflecting off of Buzz's helmet to light the fuse to the rocket. So at the last second, they light it, they start flying away, and they take the car and everything, RC, take him with them when his battery starts dying. So they escape from the dog, and then once they're in the air, they Buzz pushes the button that his character arc obviously was that he thought he was a space ranger, and a big thing about that was that he was super confident that he could actually fly with his wings, and then it turns out that he pretty much can. It works. He can do it to like a satisfactory degree, I suppose. And it turns out to be that that fact that saves them, which is sort of a callback and a running gag and a payoff to all of that, and huge for Buzz's character because it makes him realize that despite not being an actual space ranger, he is still the same person he always was, sort of. He just knows more about himself now than he did back then. But like I said, he's still the same person and should be just as happy with like who he is, and that's absolutely beautiful. And then they drop off RC into the they throw him into the moving truck. He hits Mr. Potato Head, which like he has it coming because he's kind of been the jerk of the group of Andy's toys. And then they just they go into they land in the car where Andy sits, and Andy thinks he's lost both of his favorite toys, but then there they are, and like they can actually share that that privilege, that honor, that happiness, and that like signifies the end, or the climax, I guess, of Woody's character arc, where he is content with being like Andy's favorite toy, the second favorite toy, or his previous favorite toy. He doesn't have to actually be the absolute unbridled favorite anymore, which is very nice. He's become more humble and everything. But yeah, that's the climax, and that's the end of the third act, and everything works out, and it's just, like I said, the perfect story structure, because sometimes you have to actually change that structure, the three-part structure, in order to make it more interesting, or you have to change something, or you have to you follow that to like you follow that structure too rigidly, and it ends up being like hollow and boring and formulaic. But they really nail it with the subtlety of everything, and it just it flows so smoothly, basically, and like the momentum is always like it always works with what's happening next and what's happened before. And now I'm just rambling, but and also it has such a beautiful character development for both of the main characters. Woody, like I said, he comes to terms with not being Andy's absolute favorite toy, and Buzz comes to terms with not being a space ranger, but being a toy. And those two journeys, both of their character arcs, are really very similar when you look at it, because they both come to the realization that they're, fine as they are, and it doesn't change who they are, and as long as they're proud of, themselves, then it doesn't matter what other people think, or what, like, I don't know, what the rest of the world, what their view of them is. So that's pretty much the message of the film. Be proud of who you are, I think. I mean, that's my interpretation of it. But since, it's a piece of art, you can interpret it any way you want. But I think really it is one of my favorite movies of all time, because it's just so perfect in every sense that a movie should throwaway story. Not a lot of facts in this one, but I thought it was really fun to do, and I got a lot out of it. And at the end of the day, that's the freaking point of this. So I guess I hope you got something out of it. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you fell asleep or whatever. I hope you relaxed. Anyway,